Global leaders are focused on Ukraine right now, where Russia invaded nearly 3 years ago and war has raged ever since. Now, though, it's becoming quite a diplomatic battle to be first to deliver peace talks or any progress on a ceasefire deal. Europe held a hastily arranged summit yesterday, while US officials met with Russia in Saudi Arabia overnight, but without Ukraine or Europe's involvement. To help us unpack what's happening, we're joined by Professor of International Relations Robert Patman. Good morning, Robert. 4.5-hour meeting in Riyadh there between Russia and US. Historically, how significant is this meeting?
Well, it is significant because relations between Russia and US have been very much in cold storage. They've been strained since Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014. And they certainly took a turn for the worse when Russia illegally attempted a full-scale annexation of Ukraine in February 2022. So this marks an about-face in America's approach to Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Ukraine, understandably, not happy to not be at that table. It says US is appeasing Moscow. How antagonistic is this to Ukraine to not have them involved at this stage?
I don't think it's wise because ultimately, I don't think it's wise for America's international reputation because ultimately, a sustainable peace in Ukraine involves the consent of the party that has experienced the invasion. And so to try and impose peace on Ukraine will not work. Zelensky couldn't politically accept a deal in which Russia was allowed to keep land that had been stolen from his country. Ukraine has suffered enormously during this invasion, and it's just not politically realistic to expect him or any other Ukrainian leader to accept a deal which is imposed by the United States and Russia.
You say that, but quite from the outset, the US has been quite clear that something's going to have to give. There's going to have to be some cessation of territory here. So yeah, for the Ukraine, it's a hard spot to be in.
That's puzzling in itself. But why is America taking that position under Mr. Trump? After all, this war could be over in 12 hours if Mr. Putin withdrew his troops to the internationally recognized borders of Russia. There's a peace deal. It doesn't have to be a treaty or any negotiation. Why isn't Mr. Trump, the self-proclaimed leader of the free world, demanding that an authoritarian state remove its illegal presence from a liberal democracy, which happens to be a neighbour of that country?
Trump supporters will say, well, he said he was going to end the war. He was going to try and go in there and do it quickly. So perhaps he will go in there with those intentions. But America's standing in the world, as compared to Europe, it's important in terms of world stability, isn't it?
It is, and to be fair, we're still at the early stages of this initiative, so we shouldn't be too judgmental at this stage. It may be that Mr. Zelensky will be brought into the discussions, and Europe will be, but I think there's some worrying signs from the point of view of the White House, because European countries are important in this. They are very concerned about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its implications for them. And let's be quite clear, New Zealand has a huge stake in the outcome. We're a small country, a small global trader. We depend on what's called the international rules-based order. That is that international relations is based on rules, not power. If the precedent of a country invading another and then keeping the territory that it seized stands, that will destabilize the rules-based order globally. And of course, it has big implications for China because China's a leading backer of Mr. Putin. It could be emboldened if they see that Putin has actually gained through his illegal activities.
That's one of the arguments from Europe, is that if they do allow that territory to go to Russia, what's to stop them from going any further? I mean, even from America's point of view, it's in its best interest for them not to do that, isn't it? Because, like you say, with the mention of China, there are powers that are happy to sweep into that vacuum.
Yeah, I mean, I find it difficult to read the Trump administration at the moment, not least because their officials are saying different things. General Keith Kellogg, the special envoy for Ukraine, is often talking a much tougher game than Mr. Trump himself, the president. So it's difficult to know. I think one motivation, Chris, in the Trump administration's mind is that China is the major rival and they want to improve relations with Russia to split the partnership between China and Russia. But that's quite frankly delusional, because China's the major backer of Russia, and if they strike a deal with Russia, that could achieve the very thing that America says it doesn't want to achieve, which is the emboldening and increasing assertiveness of China on the international stage.
What about for the other European leaders? You've got America over here, Russia over here, Ukraine caught in the middle, but then you've got Europe as well, which is thinking, hold on, we need to maintain this relationship with the States. We can't be having this.
Well, yes, but there seems to be, after that emergency meeting, a determination to actually European, let's be quite clear. One of the reasons Mr. Trump is playing this card at the moment is because Europe probably has not done enough to support Ukraine so far and has relied on America to do the heavy lifting in military terms. Germany's been the second biggest provider of military arms to Ukraine, but many Europeans have not really punched their weight. What is an interesting thing that's happened is the European countries, I think, are waking up to the possibility that they can't rely on the Trump administration in the way that they relied on the Biden administration to deal with Ukraine. And potentially, if Europe gets its act together, it could be formidable. But, that is a hypothetical at the moment, whether they can. There does seem to be a new determination in Europe. And it's very interesting hearing the pronouncements of German and Turkey's leaders saying basically that they won't accept any deal in Ukraine that does not restore the full territorial integrity of Ukraine, of the Ukraine before it was invaded by Russia.
Robert Patman, International Relations Professor, thank you so much for joining us this morning from Dunedin.
Thank you.